О, у нас
Да, она еще, короче, может сразу в YouTube стримить. Короче, это такая полу-open source или open source штука. Типа у меня гриф подсадила.
там не видно. Порізало.
Ну да, потому что запись на Dropbox идет, прикиньте. Ну что,
Ще раз?
слышно нормально?
Да, чуємо.
И экран видно, да?
Да, видно.
Okay, guys. Hi. We're like Bogdan, Kirill, Bogdan, whoever else. We developed further the product called TandemGraph. This is basically the Ethereum signal aggregator that helps in governance. What are the problems in current Ethereum governance? Due to the recent Ethereum survey, a bunch of problems were identified. Some of them, like most important, are connected with the lack of participation from some stakeholders groups, and some people are being too visible, and some quite like majority can be not heard, and so like currently most of the signaling, most of the like discussions happen on forums like Reddit or Twitter, and it's hard to kind of see the one point of view or few point of views from the most vocal people. So why at all like we need signaling? It's not for the everyday use, because most EAPs are like technical and don't need a lot of political debate around that, but there are some issues that raise a pretty important debate, and recently we saw some really hated and burning questions, like the proc power is for long discussed and still not fully defined. We saw some ecosystem funding requests with some miners, including some fee in the each block for the ecosystem development that was hugely crushed on Twitter and so on. So whenever Ethereum core developers want to make a good decision, they want to collect as much of the information as they can, so they would make the good choice for the sake of all Ethereum stakeholders. So when they started to discuss this problem, like it was initially raised on the Ethereum Magicians meeting in Berlin last year, where Griff Green and Phil Lusuk, they made a presentation about possible new ways of signaling. So previously we had this carbon vote where you can just signal with the amount of coins you have, but this is basically the plutarchy, which we try to avoid with our values in the community. And there are a couple of stakeholders like DApp developers or miners that usually don't participate in signaling. So we discuss possible gas voting measurements and miner signaling and so on. So after this presentation, we got funding from Give It and Aragon for a small team to start developing. And what we did was, first of all, the EP parser, where we allowed to show all the proposals that could use some signaling, so you can sort them, and we get it directly from the GitHub. We added the simple coin voting, of course, but we also added the gas voting measure, which allowed to see how much of gas was spent by those addresses and provide kind of point of view from the addresses possibly held by the DApp developers. So when they signal from those like smart contracts or addresses from the active users, it provides a bit different perspective than just the amount of coins you can just have on your account for a long time and not having much of transactions. One other controversial thing, but pretty important, was the influencer statements. So we started, we opened the call for all of the people who were pretty vocal in Ethereum. We've taken the Hive 1 measurement of most influential people in the Ethereum space, and we tried to organize their stances on the scale, like how those top 300 influencers think in general, which you can see on the graph, and then you can go directly to specific influencers and see what they wrote on that. And currently it was done manually, but we also have some improvement ideas which we'll share later. So what we got since last year, like half a year we spent on the building of the product. Then we used the ProcPow EAP 1057, and we got over like almost 200 media stances from different people. We didn't have, like, we had some addresses voting, but the turnout is pretty low as well as in the previous carbon votes. It's not too significant, but as well it provided pretty interesting perspective, this difference in coin voting and gas voting. But overall we saw that it's kind of still like not fully aligned with yeah or nay. So another thing was the Kialo experiment we ran recently. Was another approach to the structured debate where we started to discuss whether we can use taxation overall for the funding of the Ethereum ecosystem. And some people catch up, and I've used some existing results from articles and tweets, but people started to extend that and show an additional pros and cons. So you have like general pros and cons of this method, and then under each argument you have the same. And this is a graph of basically how, like, what are the pros and cons, which can improve already the quality of the information, because then it's not so focused on who said that, but rather like people vote on how important each argument is, and so on. And we are still developing it further. And another cool thing was the user grouping by behavior. So we took old EAP 186, and through the data analysis, we tried to outline several user types, being basically the like hodler with just like few transactions and lots of money in the wallet. We have like regular or active users that have like small to medium amounts and do lots of transactions, and so on. And we try to see how those behaviors, like how people's different behaviors vote on specific issues, which can give another interesting perspective. So then we finally started to work closely with Hudson Jameson from the Ethereum Foundation, who usually moderates and facilitates the calls of core devs. And in conversation with him, we identified that like there are three, like this is the overall simplified flow of the signaling, and you can see in yellow some potential challenges or problems, and those which with an outline like how we can engage more people in voting, or how we may hear the majority, not the loudest people, simplify the signal questions. They were like identified as the most important in the current situation for Hudson specifically. So we started to think about how we can do that as well. One of the cool ideas Hudson proposed is to use some kind of plugin like the Herm plugin, where if you really want to participate in the governance, you start getting a notification when there is the request for signaling for the interested group, and you can navigate to the specific EAP, read it, and signal how you feel about that, even without going to any extra websites. So you can see the discussions, you can see the full EAP, and just mark with your mark your preference at each specific EAP that needs that. Here we can add whatever features you will add, like this Twitter, auto add to stances and so on. So this is blank on purpose. Добавьте, что хотите сюда. And thanks for the team who worked during the hackathon to develop that. Добавьте тоже там текст, как бы, если надо какие-то ссылочки или что-то еще указать. Ну, все.
Теперь посмотри, сколько времени заняла эта речь.
Так, сейчас
Я
остановлю.
уверен, что будет
Да-да-да.
Так. Ну,